Welcome to Slayerfest 98. I'm the former host, Mathew Rodriguez.
And I'm Ian Carlos Crawford. Hello, Mathew!
Hi! Oh my God, I'm so happy to be here.
You're like Angel coming back at the end. Give me a little smooch on the forehead.
Oh, yeah.
And we also, this is a nice little reunion episode. Joining us, we have managing editor at primetimer.com.
Joe Reid. I always forget that I have to say my name in this. I'm sorry. Joe Reid is the name.
And in this corner, we have writer and my former podcast husband,
Anthony Oliveira. I'm Joe. I'm so glad you screwed it up before I screwed it up. It makes me very happy to hear all these voices again. Hello, everybody.
Anthony, I will always be here to screw up before you screw up. That is the pledge that I make to you.
Behind the scenes, I've already screwed up for like half an hour of delay while everyone waited for me to get a laptop that worked.
Anthony, I am impressed. You told us that you had not opened Chrome since the last time you recorded with me, which was at least a year ago.
I am truly just the stupidest human. I don't know how to work anything in the world. I just stumble ass backwards through life. And I'm very happy the stars aligned so that I could be here again today. Hi, everybody.
Hi. I'm so happy to have all you boys here. This is a nice little reunion episode. We're here to talk Buffy Season 7's End of Days. I'm here. It's very weird that it's like, this is the second to last episode of Buffy.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Truly, though, Ian, quite the accomplishment to shepherd this podcast through the whole series and changes and pandemics and all this sort of stuff. Like, tip in my hat.
Hey, thank you. I appreciate that. It feels like an eternity ago that the three of us were like in my Brooklyn apartment doing this podcast.
Crazy. Literally huddled around a little recorder and just, humble beginnings.
Whenever anyone's like, oh, this episode, because when I transferred hosting sites, I really have no idea why or how or even how I would have fixed it. But like a lot of the like season 1 and 2 episodes just didn't transfer. Like they're randomly just not there in the feed and they're just lost forever. And anytime someone's like, oh, I'm like, well, the sound quality was really terrible. Don't worry.
Well, our first episode still had a higher budget than Buffy's first episode.
True.
The mic alone.
And we only had to record our first episode once. We didn't have to go back and redo
That's
it.
True.
I don't think, at least.
That's true. Even though
no one got hard to recast.
Yeah, right. Well, I mean, kind of. I kind of original willowed my way out of the show.
You are our riff region.
I was going to say, but you did that yourself. We didn't recast
I fully did that myself. It was, yes. I mean, we don't have to tell that story, but it was one of those just like, I don't have any time to do anything. Oh, God.
And the first episode, we still say 3 Slayers, no waiting, because that was the original.
That was the original title. Have you said that on the podcast before? That was the original title? I liked that title.
I think so. Yeah. I think I have.
Yeah.
Because I mean, it still says it in that first episode. We still say welcome to 3 Slayers, no waiting.
Yeah. Anything to allow us all to break into our Bianca Lawson, Kendra accents as much as possible.
Wow. Yeah. I will have to leave immediately.
We didn't tell you we're doing the entire episode in Kendra voice.
Hard. I will. No, I can't.
We're
getting the deep lore today, though, which is appropriate for this episode.
Very true. Yeah, very lore heavy.
Secret origins are surfacing in the meta text as well.
Like this episode, this lore that you're learning about the podcast will never come back and
will not be applicable to anything else. No.
Yeah. Applied again.
So Mathew, I'm positive I've probably talked about this with all 3 of you before, but I do feel like they're trying to recapture the season 5 end momentum of like one right after the other. Oh shit, crazy things are happening. It doesn't quite get there, but
I also feel like in a lot of ways, this whole thing about going back to the beginning, and we talked about this a lot with early seasons, is that like season 1 is obsessed with codexes and prophecies and just like things that are supposed to happen. And so I also, aside from season 5, I do feel like they are going back to the season 1 philosophy of like, everything about the Slayers written in some book in a library somewhere.
Yeah, and like...
Or an Angel Fire website. In this case.
Holy mackerel, the vibes I was getting off of that website were really amazing. the little like buttons that like depress like buttons when you click them, like that whole aesthetic.
I know we're not even there yet, but can I just say, like, it's always so funny to me when the show really tries to dumb down Willow and like Giles explaining that stuff about like basic
hieroglyph. Yeah. Do you know what a hieroglyph is?
A glottal, whatever, the glottal utterance or something like that. Like, yeah.
I'm like, Willow probably knows linguistics, probably knows what a glottal stop is, and probably like knows about something about. I mean, Dawn reads ancient Sumerian. I'm sure,
right. That's true. Yeah, at this point in the show, they're all essentially just like Indiana Jones times 20 in terms of their knowledge of ancient everything. Yeah,
I believe last week she casually revealed she now reads in Turkish. I was like, oh, good for her. Really an excelling 16-year-old.
It's a good thing they pulled her out of Sunnydale High because she was not getting an education like that there.
Anthony, I imagine you being that teen that's like, oh yeah, I just figured it out.
I love a 10-minute disquisition on the nature of glottal stops in the middle of your fantasy episode. I'm happy to have it. Delightful.
So this episode picks up right where the last one left off. We get the Faith, and Adam Sass said in the episode he came back to Joe's that like, well, Faith gets put in charge, but then they catch a bomb in the mouth. And they literally it's like... I know we all probably feel the same way. Like I hate that they kicked Buffy out. It barely makes narrative sense.
Oh, I love it. I'm
really?
So glad they did. Yeah.
I was like, what?
No, I do. I actually dislike the way that the plot multiple times contrives to make Buffy correct, even though it has not earned that whatsoever, and like cheats and conspires to make Faith's instincts wrong. Like,
well, we were talking about this sort of off on our own, Anthony, right? That whole thing.
Well, I didn't want to pull you into the spotlight with me on this, Joe. But.
No, I will take that. I will take that bullet. That episode marked a workers' uprising, and the show and the fans all decided to come down on the side of management, and I feel like that show's anti-union now, is what I'm saying.
Yeah. I mean, there is a kind of quality to season 7 where it is kind of pro-management, right? Like, and I mean, it says so, right? Like, this is not a democracy. Democracies don't win wars is a line of dialogue on the show, right? So there is a weird way, and is the reason I struggle with season 7 in general, even though this was a show, obviously, that was so formative for me. But, and I guess the way to think about it positively is that I feel like this is a real encapsulation of early 2000s politics, where it is like America was very hawkish and all about the Iraq war, and we go to war with the generals we have, and like don't undermine the war effort, right? And there's a lot of that theme,
which
really
is so
on the surface
funny,
of the season.
It's so funny because like Buffy was always very heavily allegorical, obviously, but it never felt like it was current eventsy. It was never like Battlestar Galactica levels of like, this is an allegory about current events. And I don't even feel like you could tell me that like the writers and producers of season 7 of Buffy had no active intention of writing in allusions to the war in the Middle East for this, but the way it like seeps into the groundwater of culture at this portion in time, whereas like even if not trying to be about it, it's this attitude is sort of just like it seeps in, and it's very kind of fascinating.
Well, and I mean, Jane Espenson goes on to work on Battlestar Galactica, right? Like this show, and I mean, authors don't get to decide what they were writing about, right? Like that's but there is a way that in a way, like you said, like the allegory of this show so obviously becomes about that material and comes down on a weird side of it that I just never know what to make of it. Well, I find it fascinating as a time capsule, but
when I was on the Storyteller episode, Ian, I don't remember if I mentioned this specifically, but I thought like one of the things, because like other Buffy seasons, like season 5 was about how weird it was to, you know, leave the nest and go to college. And like season 4 is sort of like that too. And a lot of season 7 felt like it's a story about how much it sucks to be the boss. And like Buffy in the early years was like using high school as an allegory, and then like using like leaving high school as an allegory. But by the time she's still only college aged. And it's weird to like now all of a sudden we feel like we've leapt forward several stages in life.
She's 46, yeah.
It's just like, God, it sucks to be in charge of all these employees. And it's just like, that's not a concern of like, it feels like we've moved so far beyond, and now it's just like the people in charge being like, I hate being the boss. It's an odd fit.
To go back, Anthony, what you were saying, there's a part that happens, I believe, in Empty Places that sounds very Weapons of Mass Destruction, where she's talking about how like the villains always go where the power is, and we have to go to inspect to see if they have this weapon, and no one else kind of believes her. So Buffy is like this, like,
she's the UN weapons inspectors. Yeah.
There's this other, it reminds me of, I don't know if anyone has read the original essay of Rebecca Solnit's Men Explain Things to Me, which does not use the term mansplaining, but gave rise to the term mansplaining. And in it, she talks about how, like, she imagines that maybe there was like this one woman in the room who was telling all the men that like there weren't any weapons of mass destruction, but like they didn't listen to her because she was a woman. And it also kind of reminds me of that, of like this idea that like Buffy's kind of doing the opposite of being like, no, there are plenty of like hawkish women who want to go in and like are very willing to spare the lives of lactose intolerant girls from China in order to get shit done.
Yeah, and I mean, even at the macro level of the plot, it is about preemptive war, right? Like the whole message of season 7 is we have to take the battle to them before they're allowed to attack us, right? Like that, she goes down into the seal, all of that is just, I just never know how to coordinate the meaning of the season, but I find it fascinating. And I must admit, I found it kind of binged watched better than I thought it would. I started with Dirty Girls and watched up to the finale, and it's like, because they blend together so much as episodes.
Especially the run of Dirty Girls through End of Days feels like one episode.
Like I just watched this episode twice, and I will still struggle to remember what happens in this episode.
I mean, I remember. So, I mean, when we all watched Buffy when it was on, and I remember starting with Dirty Girls, they kind of did that count every week of like, there's only 7 episodes of Buffy left. And I remember, you know, I'm sure we all had that feeling of like, okay, why the fuck are they introducing a preacher with like 8 episodes left? And he's supposed to be like this huge deal. But he's just coming to town in episode 16 or 15 of the season.
Right.
Very like, what the fuck?
And like they also played Michelle Branch in every one of those promos. Goodbye to you.
I do think that of the 2 Firefly graduates, I do think that the Angel Jasmine thing is the better late introduction of like, I owe you an apology for Firefly being canceled. You know, like
Whereas it's the Cobra health insurance. Oh, Anthony, you're not American, so maybe you don't feel this as much in your bones as I do. But it's you've lost your job, but Cobra will still cover you for another 18 months, and that's sort of what the Jasmine and whatever the preacher in this were. Yeah, totally.
I love Jasmine. I like things about Caleb as a character design. I actually wonder if he would be more interesting if he were less physically imposing. Like, if he were just a dweeby incel energy kind of thing who just happened to be super strong and kept... Like, he actually references his love for St. Paul at one point, and I think it would be cool if he was just kind of this, like, 120-pound MRA activist.
It really is sort of built for you, Anthony, in terms of just, like, all the, like, the actual Christian religion into it, and it's... They just sort of drop that ball... on that regard.
Yeah, like I actually, a lot about the first, I think I talked about this, I think was my first episode Amends? Like,
yes,
I feel like I am the first perfect. Correspondent, right? Yeah. Like, and trying to coordinate what the lore is trying to do with the first and with Caleb interests me a lot. Like, he says there's a moment where they're all sinners and you are sin, and I find that interesting. I find the way he's just like a general mishmash of like tropes about religion, like, I can't tell if he's supposed to be evangelical or what he's supposed to be, or what his, like, what are we supposed to make of his faith structure? Like, he really does seem to be like a new atheist bogeyman, right? Like, he is the concept of religion come to roost, which again goes to the weird, that is a piece of the like Iraq war stuff, right? Like the Hitchkins of it all, of like, well, we have to destroy these religious ideologists, right? So I don't know.
Well, what's interesting too, really, that he does say is that he is, whatever he is a lapsed religious person, because he does say, like, I thought the Lord was the way, and then I found out that it was you.
Right. He responded to the misogynist aspects and nothing else.
Right. It was his good launching pad, and then he needed to move on to something more advanced.
Yeah, he likes their Selma killing policy, but not their Bart killing policy.
All right. Wait, so I'm gonna, boys, I need to set us back on track.
Okay, thank you. Right.
I forgot we're recording with the four of us as well.
Yeah, good luck, buddy. Good luck.
So I feel like I can hear Anthony all the times he goes, be like, I know Ian's getting stressed. We need to get back on track.
We haven't even started the episode.
Yeah, I'm not. So we open, the explosion happens. While the Scythe feels almost useless, I do like it. It looks cool. I like that they like the King Arthur shit where it's like, he's like, you're not gonna be able to pull that, and then she just immediately lifts. Like, I do.
It also sounds cool. I love the sound design for the Scythe.
Yeah, it's like that weird specific I don't know.
It sings.
I have to disagree. I think that I like the sound design for the Scythe. I think the Scythe looks cheap.
Oh,
it does kind of have the Beast Wars kind of chrome thing.
Well, this is also the Buffy in on Hulu thing too, though, right? Where everything looks 20% cheaper now because.
Well, I've always hated the wooden stake at the end of it. I just think that looks silly.
It's because it's an omni tool, though, Matthew. Alton Brown on Food Network would be very, very happy with this because it's not a single function kitchen tool. It really it does multiple things.
If you could get a super soaker in there, it'd be perfect. Or it could smash garlic or something.
He does have a super soaker in the Xbox game that I always bring up on the show. It lets out health.
Snaps for chaos bleeds. Yeah.
They should have brought that in because it does make sense. But we said in the previous recording from I'm like, what are the episode names touched? Kirsten White said that she thinks her biggest issue with it is that it looks too new. Like it should, if it's this ancient weapon, it
does look factory new, fresh out of the box, totally.
And so
did you guys talk about Frey and all of that?
I was actually gonna ask Anthony. I feel like I know you read Frey, but I can't remember.
Yeah, oh yeah, for sure.
Matthew and Joe, did either of you read the Frey comic?
No.
So this is the thing. This weapon already existed in the lore. It was in Frey, which is the story of 22nd century vampire slayer, and in that. She's got this weapon, and they keep talking about how it's the ancient weapon of the Slayers, and the undropped shoe was always how come Buffy doesn't have it?
Right.
So this show is paying that off, but it feels like a very late introduction. I honestly, one of the things that I feel like I warned Ian, talking about season 7 for me. I love this show, I really do, but the back end gives me some trouble, and I do think there are... One of the ways it cheats and makes Buffy always right is suddenly 2 major MacGuffins drop into the story. One is this weapon, and the second is Spike's little necklace.
Right.
And in both cases, Buffy could not have won. Buffy's plan in the finale, spoilers, wouldn't have worked if Spike hadn't suddenly exploded. Right? So that aspect of it, I wouldn't mind if we had really leaned into a longer lead up to this thing. And maybe spent a bit the Guardian lady we meet at the end of the episode seems to live in an apartment that's smaller than mine. I wouldn't have minded a bit more lead on this, but
well, a lot of ways this episode feels like the first 10 minutes of The Gift, where it's they're in the magic shop and Anya's hammer of a god, and somebody else is Dagon Sphere, and it's just assembling the weapons. And that one felt more. First of all, it's a lot shorter, and it felt more earned because it's oh right, we went through the whole episode with the hammer of the god, and we we remember the Dagon Sphere from when that was a thing, and it felt like you all of a sudden it's just all of season 5 was we were sort of collecting these things and putting them on a shelf and waiting for them to become useful. And in this it was just need something. What do we need? We need something. Scythe, and then now it's there, and so it felt a little cheaper.
You're always supposed to get this sense, especially around series finales when you know the series is going to end, that they could have mapped out this whole thing and like really made sure all the pieces were in place. And it really does feel like around 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 Empty Places, the room was like, okay, how are they gonna win? And so
right,
like, okay, I don't know, go to Limited 2, get a necklace.
Well, Mathew, what's crazy about that, and you're totally right, but like what's the thing with season 7 to me on sort of a macro level, and I'll sort of give the preface to, like Anthony said, like I do love this show. It is one of the most important shows to me, and I love where it shakes out. But like if you look at season 7, it often really feels like about 5 things happen in season 7. And the end point where they get to, I really love. I love where it all ends. And it sometimes feels like, okay, well, we've got to fill out 22 episodes. And so we get like 5 episodes that are just about the seal and about like the Uber vamps and whatever. And then this one, it's just like from Dirty Girls. And then like 3 episodes in the middle were like, basically, we put Xandra in an eye patch and we find the Scythe. And that's sort of like, even the Uprising feels like, well, it happens and then it's done. And it's just like, it lasts an episode. And I feel like the pacing of the season is so strange. And Mathew, you and I were talking literally yesterday about like standalone episodes and how much we love standalone episodes. And it's like this season could have been 5 major signposts of like things that happen to get us to where we need to be in Chosen. And then like 12 cool little standalone episodes like Selfless or whatever that are, or like Storyteller even when I was on earlier. And that one has a lot more plottiness than Selfless does. But we could have just had like stories within the Buffy universe that feel a little bit more self-contained, which would have actually been a nice little throwback to season 1, which had a lot more standalone episodes. And then dealt with the plottiness, you know, when we needed to, rather than stretch out the plottiness to the point where we have this episode, End of Days, we're like, what happens in this episode? Like Anya and Andrew go on a shopping trip to a hospital, and it's by far the best thing. Like, not to get ahead of us, Ian. Sorry, I know you're breaking out in hives right now. But like, it's by far the best part of the episode. And it's like, and it's just totally a side quest, but it's like with characters we love and it's whatever. But it's just like so much boondoggling.
It should totally. Like, that's the other thing is like, there's a kind of funereal pacing and quality. Like everyone seems tired, and it's funny because like I was again watching all of them, and it's like, oh, how what an amazing actress Sarah Michelle Gellar is. She sounds so tired, and then it cuts to the first, and she still sounds tired. It's like, wait. She's sick. Like, she's not well. But like, you're right. Like, it would be nice if I would have loved an Andrew and Anya at the hospital episode. I similarly would have loved, there's the episode where Spike and Andrew go to the, they go out of town on the bike, and it's like, that should have been its own, like them in a haunted monastery. Give me that. Give me a Scooby-Doo episode with Spike and Andrew, right?
You know, like, the thing is too, is like, and the thing is, it almost feels like when you are really good at doing something, and then you feel the pressure of having to do it in a finale way,
right?
Like, no, you know, I mean, actually, wait, Baljox's Eye is this season, but like, you know, you know how to do an episode where like you go on a side quest and you can like gain a power up, you know, but you didn't have to just like have it that someone. It doesn't. I forget who gives them the Limited 2 necklace, but it's like, isn't it literally like in a paper bag also?
It's from, yes.
Isn't it Lila?
Yeah, it's easy to forget all that. Yeah.
Well, and the crazy thing is, and like, so Anthony, you did or didn't watch, you didn't watch all of Angel, right?
Oh, definitely did. I love Angel.
So Matthew's the only one that did. No. Okay, so even in Angel, though, right? They don't explain that well. Lila just is kind of like, here's the thing.
A thing for you.
Helpful. Yeah.
I think there is a strong, or at least slight implication later that it was actually meant to be a trap for Angel.
Yes. No. Well, right. It was right. Meant to be
Angel. Yeah.
Yes, you're right.
I think it's been a long time since Angel season 5, but I think it's one of Wolfram and Hart's many attempts to kind of neuter him.
But like for the show Buffy, it's weird, right? Because like, he doesn't really say what it is. He's just like, oh, she's like, was it a reliable source? He's like, not really. And that's it. And then the conversation's over, and it just feels like,
and again, if it hadn't done exactly what it ends up doing by accident, those kids would have all died in the seal, right? Like, similarly, I feel like we're being really harsh, and I don't want to be, but similarly, like, why were Caleb and the First digging up this axe in the first place, right? Like there is that is never explained. They have handily
it's much better
given
for them
her
to leave it buried. Yeah.
Yeah, I can imagine a version of this season where you do the whole back to the beginning thing in the first episode. You see that the school is like doing these excavations it shouldn't to do. And then at the end of the first episode, Buffy finds this thing in the basement, pulls it out of the seal, because we know it was the weapon that sealed the last demon away. And then she's responsible for the whole season instead of doing this weird soft shoe of like, why is the First suddenly able and suddenly interested in doing this stuff? Like, what if the new Slayer accidentally undid the work of the first Slayer, right? That would have been fun.
Well, and then also I think, it wouldn't have hurt to have a conversation where maybe Caleb is talking to the First and saying like, oh, I really think that we should dig up this scythe because I want to keep it from Buffy.
Yeah.
And the First being like, well, if you unbury it, then you're already doing Buffy's work for her. Like, there has to be that like almost just logical conversation about like, is it better to keep it something from her or better to just leave it in the ground? That way it can never be, used to.
He Streisand affected it.
Yes. Right. Because he also confronts her in Dirty Girls and says like he has Shannon tell her that he has something of hers. And it's like, why? Like, why? Like, it should have just been a trap to kill a bunch of potentials. Not like, oh no, I wasn't lying. I'm a villain, but I told the truth. Like, I do have something of you.
Right.
Sorry.
I couldn't have just lied and said that there was something you should come get. I had to like actually have something. Yeah.
What did you say, Matthew?
Can we just say for one moment on the potentials?
Yes.
I wanted to say to them, no, you cannot take an Uber van.
Oh, they really thought that they could. Yeah.
There's 15 of us and there's one of him. I'm like, okay, so he's going to eat all 15 of your
surely that one machine gun can't mow down 20 of us. Like,
God.
Imagine if at that moment the Uber van just killed them all and that was the end of the potential.
That was the end
Also, I need to ask, because I've been asking everyone this season as we get to her. I can't remember, and I'm positive I've probably asked you boys this already. Matthew, I forget what you think of Kennedy. I feel like we agreed, right?
Kennedy. Don't know. I don't know her.
President after Nixon, but before Lyndon Johnson.
I think
I don't remember how that story ended.
Complicated legacy.
Yeah. I don't really care for Kennedy, but I don't have the visceral hate for her that other people do. That's basically it. Like, but I don't really. When I think of Buffy, Kennedy is maybe the 74th character I think of.
The hate is what makes me defend her more is because it's like I don't think she's great, but I also think like, all right, she's fine and she's definitely the best.
I mean, I didn't want Willow's pussy to go unlicked for the rest of her life.
Like, that's important. It is weird at the distance of 20 years to look back on these shipping wars and be like, why? Who cares? Like,
oh, listen, if you were, I feel that way. But if you saw Slayerfest 98's mentions, you would see that everyone still cares.
Yeah,
I believe it. And
those battle lines are still bright. Yeah.
But that's the thing. She's inherited a role that no one would have thrived in this position, right? Like, you've come after easily you could say one of the most important, capital I important relationships in television history, right? Who's going to follow that one? And I'm sorry, God bless whoever she is, but her acting ability, she is Tara McClay, she is not, like I feel for her, but I do think a thing that happens with this shipping stuff is like sometimes you just fuck someone and like it doesn't have to be, not every one of them has to be the most be all end all relationship.
Somebody should have done a comic back in the day that was like Riley and Kennedy and Ashanti from that episode where Xander goes on a date with Ashanti, and like they team up as like the rebounds. And
well, I also do want to say that I really do wish that Riley had made it into the last season somehow.
He really is the only one. He's really left out of the party.
Like Mark Lucas was calling Josh. hey, it's kind of like that email from Rooney Mara to Amy Pascal about girl with the dragon tattoo. Like,
whereas Seth Green had his phone off the receiver for like 6 months just because to make sure that it was a busy signal when they called him.
Like, he made a preemptive call to say, "I'm busy for the rest of the year." Just
I've got plans for this year. Yeah,
and I mean, it matters in this episode in particular the way this show feels like it has to thread the Angel versus Spike needle, right? Yeah. Like, it's weird to watch it and feel the way it's putting up all these pylons about it. Like, if you like Spike and Buffy, this is the scene of the two of them facing each other. Maybe they had sex, I don't know. And like, then we have the Angel of it all at the end, and that bitch line, which ends up going nowhere. Am I correct?
So many things in this episode go nowhere. That one especially.
Will get there. We will get there.
Sorry, Ian's gonna kill us. I'm
gonna murder all three of you.
He's gonna take a scythe, and in one stroke, because there are 3 ways to kill people, it's just gonna be the 3 of us. We're all gonna be done.
Let's go to the 2. Let's just take 2 things at once and do the Caleb infusion and the Buffy and Faith conversation.
Okay. Wait, no, because the Buffy and Faith conversation isn't till later, right?
Well, the next thing, right, is the Caleb infusion.
Oh, right. Yeah, okay. So the Caleb infusion, I'm glad they at least, like, I actually had forgotten. And, like, I'm pretty good at remembering shit from the show. I'd forgotten that they do explain at least why Caleb is, like, so powerful, which, okay, sure. I don't know. What do you guys think about that?
Father Optimus Prime. It's whatever.
Again, my hobby horse about the first is like, I don't love the way its incorporeality becomes such an important beat in season 7. I like the way it operates in Amends, where it is fully like touching Angel's hair. Like, the point is, it is emotions in extremis. Like, that was kind of what it was a metaphor then, and I kind of wish that had borne out now. And now it's like, anger about its own incorporeality is very strange to me. But this is so sketchy, right? Like sketched in. We don't know how Caleb in the first met. We don't know why he is this unique vessel. Is it just because he's a hyper misogynist? Maybe, I guess. Yeah, I don't know. It's fine. It gives the henchman the power up. It works, I guess, but nothing we haven't seen before, right?
Does the first take any other forms with Caleb? I sort of skipped to this one after Storytellers.
But it does a best of his misogynist world tour, where it's like, show me all the girls you killed. It definitely doesn't do anyone expensive to book. Like,
and it doesn't do any men, though, right? Is the other? It doesn't do like
it never does. No.
I would have liked a little. I know that like it runs antithetical to his whole like misogyny personified thing, but like
if he had been the Pope or something.
Well, I wanted like Harry Grainer to be like as flirty with him as Buffy first is. You know what I mean? Just for my own.
Yeah. There's definitely he does have a kind of latent vibe, doesn't he? Like,
he's a gay misogynist.
Yeah, in his black jeans.
Mathew, what do you think about it?
I cool. Anytime we see the first as the little bunny, I love the bunny first. You know, like the big monster that it's supposed to come out as.
Oh, the classical demon one.
Oh, yeah.
I always think it looks like a bunny.
It's like the exact same effect from when it erupts out of Jenny Calendar and Matt, right? Like, yeah. And when you fight it as a boss battle in Chaos Bleeds.
Yes. But I also do want to backtrack just a second. I do love Buffy coming in. I do love like her entrance. It is a very like hero's entrance. And I appreciate when we can get that from our hero. And like, I know the back and forth of the like whether she was right or whether she was wrong, but like I do like that she comes in, she saves the girls, and she's just like, get the wounded, we're leaving, and is very like, she doesn't need like the kicking her out of the house. I go back and forth with the way everyone's acting this season. Almost every time I've watched it, I go back and forth whether like I'm more on Buffy's side, I'm more on Faith's side, I'm more on the Scooby side, whatever. This time I've been kind of like split down the middle where I think everyone's being an asshole. Like Faith is kind of the only one not being an asshole.
Yeah.
But I appreciate that like she's our hero for a reason, and she's not like, when she brings them back to the house, she's kind of like the Amanda and Kennedy are like, we're being punished. We followed Faith. We got punished. And she's
that's what bothers me about it. They are being punished for following Faith. Like the plot is punishing them for simply making what is a very reasonable judgment call, which is Buffy got us all killed and Xander blinded by going to this vineyard for no reason. Buffy goes to the vineyard again and gets what she wanted. Faith, making the exact same judgment call, gets us blown up, right? Like, and it's nice that the plot conspires to like let Buffy be, grandiloquent and be like, "Oh, I forgive you for throwing me out of the house," but they are being punished. That's what bothers me about it.
Well, she also gets to sort of bestow this grace on Faith too, where it's just like, anyone could have done that, and it's just like, that's true, and I'm glad that somebody said it to Faith, but like it's weird that it's Buffy just being like a silly child. Like anybody could have failed as spectacularly as you did today.
Yeah.
But for me, I understand too that like they needed to like lay Faith up for an episode so she could go film the True Calling pilot, which is like logistically a part of that.
Is that really why?
Yes, this episode filmed before Touched because Eliza needed to go film the True Calling pilot. And that's why she's out of commission for most of this episode.
What was the pitch on True Calling? Can someone remind me?
She touches dead cadavers in the mortuary, and they tell her how they died, and then she like flashes back and like has to solve it, right?
Isn't that what iZombie was basically?
Yes. It was before that, and Zach Galifianakis was on it.
Yeah, and Jason Priestley. Yeah.
But iZombie did it way better, I will say. That's a show I never even finished, but I did love the like 2 or 3 seasons I watched. But my counterpoint to what you guys are saying is that I feel like Buffy made a mistake and Faith made a mistake. So for me, it's like they're realizing like, I don't know, like they're the Slayers, so they have this like Faith has it too. She's cooler about it, and she wears like she's smoking cigarettes, but like she's still like right. They like pose her as like the cool one, and like the cool fun aunt is what we kept calling her in Dirty Girls. And like for me, I think it puts them on the same playing field of like, oh, now both of them got people killed. Like we see that like.
Sure.
You know what I mean? That's so I don't.
Why isn't the speech like, oh my God, I'm 21. I shouldn't be in charge of any of this. Instead of like, why are they both being like, that's the cost of being a general. Kids die. And it's like, what are you talking about? Why is this like, what are they fighting for is I guess the question. I think that the evacuation of the town is a big mistake as a plot beat in general, because I no longer know. It's like when you're watching a superhero movie and it's like the town is saved and it's like you see the town, it's like there's nothing left. Like
right.
I feel like the emotional stakes are evacuated along with everybody, and like similarly like Buffy sends Dawn away and it's barely paid off, like I wish there was a beat of like the eye thing, like does she feel bad about Xander's eye? I would love to hear her thoughts about Xander's eye.
Well, the other thing is evacuating Sunnydale. That's a good point, which is that the outside world has never existed beyond like very, very small slivers of things. Like you got the thing at the end of Primeval where the initiative, the government in Washington talks about the initiative, but like, and like allusions to her life in LA even feel like they're like hundreds and thousands of miles away, right? Yeah. And so
I mean, look at what the town outside Sunnydale looks like, right? It's just like this endless wasteland.
So we have to stop the first, or else it'll take over first Sunnydale and then the world. But it's like the world has never existed on this show. It's only ever been about Sunnydale. So then if you're not saving Sunnydale, then what? You're right. What is it about?
Yeah, like I don't know how great I feel about the visual at the end of this of just like a crater in the ground. It's like we won. It's like, did you?
I mean, there's your Iraq War metaphor though, like really laid out pretty plain, right? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
All right.
Sorry again.
So, God, where the fuck are we, Matthew?
Well, that's series wrap.
Dad's so mad. All right.
Let's talk about Dawn and Xander, because it's in 2 separate scenes where he shocks her surprisingly, and then the chloroforms her, and then the second one where she shocks him. But let's just take it all in one.
Yeah,
I hate it.
Matthew, what do you think about that scene, Matthew?
It would have once again if it were differently plotted, I would have loved a Dawn Xander on the road episode.
Yeah.
Where they talk about whether they even want to be there for the end of the world, you know?
That would be great, actually. Yeah. I would definitely love
45 minutes of that. I understand what it is to want to be there, but also, like, what a gift to, like, get out of jail free card. Like, girl, go to Auntie Anne's, have a day.
Have a roadside Orange Julius somewhere and just sort of, like, chill. Right. Yeah.
No, I mean, that's the thing is, like, this... When we're talking about what's lacking in season 7, you get obviously a lot of things about like Buffy and the nature of power. But imagine an episode where Xander and Dawn talk about like being able to be spared from the carnage, or like whether you want to be a part of it, or whether like what is your role when your best friend constantly ices you out. Like imagine Xander saying to Dawn, it has been so hard being best friends with your sister who constantly wants to sideline me. And yet I come back to her because I had a crush on her 7 years ago. And like Dawn being like, well, what about me? Like all I asked for is for like Buffy to show me the world. And she had this opportunity to do it. And instead she like put me in a Mazda. Like, I felt like there was...
I did love that part in the note where Buffy's like, I did promise to show you the world, and I promise I will get to that soon. Like, as soon as I can.
Like, I guess what she meant after she's done saving the world, they can go to the Grand Canyon. Like, what is
right, yeah, exactly.
So, like, you can just bring the Grand Canyon to you.
Yeah, I promise you, Dairy Queen after. Like, it'll definitely happen.
I really feel like there was an episode, a moment for, like, because it was, once again... a really, really, like, shocking when you watched it for the first time plot point to see Xander chloroform Dawn, to have it only pay off in her stun gunning him and turning around.
So this is what I hated about it, though. I really kind of despise this whole development, beyond the fact that just it pertains absolutely zero to next episode. I had totally forgotten it happened because... it doesn't, like, I guess it, like, Dawn's pissed for a second in Chosen, but, like, there are, like, 18 other things.
She punches her in the shoulder and says dope or something.
And it's just, like, and so it feels like such a hamster wheel thing of just, like, we're just going to, like, put Xander and Dawn into a thing so that they don't have to be, you know, mucking up the rest of the storylines in this episode. But also... and I can't remember at the time, were we meant, because remember earlier in the season, we were meant to be suspicious of Giles, and maybe Giles was the first and whatever. Yada. Was there any reason, sort of extra textually, that we were suspicious of Xander, that moment was supposed to fool us in any way? So so then it felt like this really gratuitous thing of, Xander needs to get Dawn out of town, and we need to do it in the most, like, predatory violence against women, like Brooke Smith and the Van and the Silence of the Lambs kind of way.
And they play the sinister music.
And it's just like, so like, do we think that Xander, after all of this, is just like, you know what, maybe I am going to go evil and like just menace Dawn? And it makes really just, it does, I guess it makes sense in the plot in that, like, of course Buffy would want to get Dawn out of town, but to carry it off in this way that is maximum... it also gives you the sense that, like, Xander's only talking to Dawn because he wants to get the jump on her. Otherwise, why would he ever talk to Dawn? And, it just felt like doing it that way, in a way that had no stakes ultimately and would never pertain to anything. And then, ends up with, like, Dawn getting the jump on him with, like, a very conveniently, like, placed stun gun. And I was like, why? What was the whole point of all of this, like, ugliness for ugliness sake, when we're already dealing with poked out eyeballs and dead teenage girls and all this other stuff?
We did really... casually learn that Dawn killed a cat.
Yes.
I know. Poor Miss Kitty Fantastico. God.
If we're talking about alternate routes that season 7 could have taken, imagine a season 7 in the style of 24, where it all takes place in the last
in one day.
And we get a whole hour of, like, Xander and Dawn on the road talking like that. But yeah,
I kind of like your pitch of, like, Dawn and Xander save a gas station outside of town and, like, come back.
Because you know what else actually it pays off on is there is that conversation that Dawn and Xander have about being at the end of Potential, where they talk about being the two most useless people in the room.
Right.
Yeah. Actually, a road trip conversation, a Tu Wong Fu, thanks for everything, Buffy Summers. Would have been great, because it pays off on that conversation about what it means to be useless in the context of the end of the world.
I was going to say they should go like take a day trip to Joshua Tree or something, but then I remembered that the first Slayer is there, and that's no fun.
That would be, I don't mind. There's a version of this season that I actually wouldn't mind, which is if potential had gone the other way, and that Buffy realizes that Dawn is a potential. I actually would rather jettison all these 30 extra girls who are literally crowding the frame and just have Dawn be the one where it's like, listen, you share your power, you're going to have to share it with Dawn. And that becomes the way she shows her the world. Like, then all this discussion of like empowerment and who leads and being alone actually has a meaningful personal connection, like that gesture at the end where she says, no, you join me in this fight would mean something more than the montage we get, which I do love, but it's hollow. None of these characters have names,
I do think it is another like course of like, this should have just been like a discussion where Dawn is like, no, absolutely not. Because this is one of Buffy's decisions that really does make sense, right? Like these are, the two of them have no power. The two of them are not good at the fight. I don't know. Like for me,
it's the seventh season. Like, have these people not earned the right to fight along with her by now? Like, how many times has Buffy learned this lesson that just because you don't have superpowers doesn't mean you're not useful in a fight, right? Like,
I agree. I think that her decision makes no sense. Like, there's so many. It's all minutia. Like Xander can be there to do the things like, someone has to make the Costco run, like things for everyone to do, and to actually send people out at the beginning of the fight. Like at the end of the day, most people don't fight. They're upstairs
dying
at high anyway. So there was always, even if it was Xander out. I mean, doesn't Xander wait at the bus anyway during the fight? Like
him and Dawn are.
Oh, him and Dawn do fight.
Yeah.
Quite successfully. So
they do.
They eat shit, Buffy.
Okay. Matthew, you brought this up. Let's go to Buffy and Faith. I actually do like this scene. I'm predicting that no one else did, but I felt like we needed a Buffy and Faith scene where they at least like talk about stuff, right? That isn't just like relating to their current fight. Because like the last time they saw each other, it was before this was not great, right? The last time she saw Faith was after Faith had stolen her body and she went to LA, right? That's like, so it's not like they were cool, even though Faith, at this point, we know the character from like Angel and stuff is quote unquote good. To Buffy, like Buffy has every reason not to, because I've seen a lot of people in Slayerfest 98's mentions saying like they don't like that Buffy doesn't seem to like Faith anymore. And it's like, well, but she doesn't, because the last time they didn't have any good encounters, right?
Well, there was that episode. I mean, it wasn't a good encounter, but like after the body swap, she follows her to LA when she goes to Angel, and they have that like fight on the rooftop. And you get why Buffy's resistant to the idea that Faith might redeem herself, but there is like unquestionably like Angel keeps telling her, and clearly, when Willow came back to town, Willow, I'm sure, said like, no, like Faith's cool now. You know what I mean? Like Faith saved us all. And
sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. You go.
I think it's one of those things too. Like ultimately, I don't mind the scene, but I also feel like the show is going out of its way to make sure that we know that Buffy and Faith are cool with each other. With like, ultimately, I don't really care if Buffy and Faith like each other.
Oh, I do. That's my thing.
Yeah.
That's why I kind of like this episode, this scene rather, is because as basic as it is, just like I like any Buffy and Faith could be friends content, because I just like it's ultimately what I want, and it's very simplistic.
I think they're much more interesting as frustrated colleagues who.
I think you're right. I think you're like on the merits. You are right.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that, but
like I don't mind them going from friends to lovers to enemies to lovers to like I kind of enjoyed that going back and forth. I do think that what's interesting about any conversation they have, and like Joe pointing to that Angel episode, is really interesting because Buffy is truly she comes off as monstrous in that episode.
She's the bad guy in that episode. That's what I love about that episode. It really allows Buffy to be the villain. Yeah.
And it's truly like that is the difference between those two shows, right? Like a demon is a demon on Buffy, and a demon is like might be good, might be bad on Angel, right? Like, and her insistence on this black and white moral rectitude is kind of built into the character, right? She's aware it is one of her biggest flaws.
Yeah.
But at the same time, she's now gone through season 6, and it might have been nice for her to have touched base with Faith about like what it means to, like, what does it mean to have casual sex? You know, like, she's now a different person. I would have liked to have had a bit of development there, but I don't need them to. I agree. I don't need them to be besties. They can bang it out later. You know, like that's
yeah. Plenty of time to do that in the new world. Yeah.
I mean, I think I like the dynamic here. Joe, so you are like me. I want them to be like at least cool. And I think that the thing is, it's not like they're not besties here. Like at the end of the scene, it's just, they're kind of like, they're cool. And that's what I needed. I needed like to like rid myself of most of the animosity. Because I feel like even when Faith starts her speech to Buffy, she says, the funny thing is, and like twice Buffy's like, is that the funny part?
Yeah. What's
like,
the
Buffy's,
funny part?
You know what I mean? And also, I love Sarah Michelle Gellar's delivery when Faith mentioned she had sex with Robin Wood, and she's like, "You had sex with in my bed." Is that the funny part? Like, I love the way she's like rambling, and she's like clearly also annoyed at Faith, right?
I love that Buffy's like 75% of the way from being like, that was an odd story development in last episode. Like that was like, that kind of came out of nowhere, huh?
Gosh, I leave for one day and you fucked my boss.
Right, exactly.
And I do like their line when like, thank God we're hot chicks with superpowers. Yeah, it takes the edge off. I do like a little bit of like the like, all right, this is a heavy conversation where we're trying to like
rock and roll. Let's do it. Yeah.
I don't know. I just like that it's silly.
It's kind of important for the story, right? Like this is the conversation where Buffy realizes that sharing her power, like they're passing the scythe back and forth, and it's like it is kind of where it seeds the idea that she could share this burden with somebody.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's important in that sense.
Oh, Anthony, thank you for backing me up.
These characters have to have a conversation, right? Like that's just you can, and we are at that point in the series where it's like that's a series wrap for Clem, you know, like we're paying off everything, so you can feel them kind of touching bases as they run around.
It's so funny because I do feel like one of the things that is actually kind of tonally off in the last few episodes is like, you know, there is this mounting sense that like everyone in the house has a feel or knows that the end is coming. And so it puts into perspective, you know, their relationships. They're like, okay, we kind of have to let bygones be bygones because it might be the end of the world. But then some conversations feel really weighty and some feel like, well, I'm just going to let it go because the world could end. And it feels like there's not a really like the show doesn't come out. I don't know. I'm not exactly sure how to say it, but some conversations feel like, you know, I guess we have to bury the hatchet because we all might die. And then some feel like, oh, the world is ending. We really need to air out the dirty laundry. And there's some, they don't really circle that square super well. Because I think that there is an alternate version of this conversation where Buffy goes in and is like, hey, like, what was it like fucking leading Faith? Like, you know, I don't know.
Well, and so I even, you know, like you said, we're getting a lot of like, okay, we got to wrap up this dynamic and whatever. And I like that then, you know, she leaves, she goes down and Spike's there and he's like, honey, you're home. And I do like their discussion here. James Marsters, the way he acts with Spike in love with Buffy is just, I don't know, the way he looks at her, the way he like clearly is hanging on her every word. And also I love that he's coming in with all these big emotions, which this is me coming in with all these big emotions. And she's like, I am very busy here. There's an apocalypse. And she's like, yes, I love you too. We're good. Let me just do the thing. And he's being like, very like, well, but I love you. And like, just so like tender. I don't know. I really like this scene. I like the scene they had in Touched is I think one of their best scenes together. And I like this as like a, you know, kind of like I mean, they do get a scene in Chosen, but it's not as like big as this. Like this is them talking about their feelings, even though it seems like Buffy's avoiding him. But then at the end, like, I love when she's like, I'm tired of defensive and weird mixed signals. I have Faith for that.
Which I also was kind of like, you just had this perfectly nice conversation with Faith. Like, asshole, why are you throwing her back under the bus like that?
Yeah, I don't know. Like, Mathew, I'm curious. What do you think of this scene with her and Spike?
I like the scene. I think it's another one where, like, it's a major conversation that is treated very minorly. Like, it happens in a literal liminal space in the house, like between the kitchen and the living room.
Right.
It doesn't feel like it's given the weight that it kind of should, because as we were kind of talking about with Buffy and Faith, like, whether we think characters need a resolution, obviously the Buffy and Spike resolution kind of happens as he's evaporating, but I do think that this needed a little bit more room to, I mean, and also it's kind of funny after Buffy has been the Slayer for 7 years to be like, listen, the thing that really got me through it was that hand holding we were doing in the bed the other night.
The hand holding.
That was some intense hand holding. I finally came to my senses and got outside.
Joe, what do you think of the scene with them together?
Oh, I hate Spike. So it's tough. All of this stuff, I almost feel like I need to recuse myself. And it's by this point in the series, they had pretzel logicked him so much into getting him to a point where it would be acceptable to have the two of them together. And every single turn of that has felt so effortful to me. And I can't. I'm the unpleasant one to talk about Buffy and Spike, because I really there's nothing about it, especially by this point, that I feel like I don't think it's worth it. I don't think that the end product of having Buffy and Spike romantically together was worth all of it. If
the show were on now and we had to do the touched everyone has sex episode, I would have had it that Faith leaves the house to go after Buffy and be like, I didn't want it this way. And then they finally, and that's the end of their, like, they finally get it out and have sex. That's my HBO version of what happens. And Spike dies or something.
I love that rewrite, though. I do. Like, let's finally do this. Come on. Anthony, what do you think of the scene?
Yeah, I would never on paper say the things Joe just said, but
you have a much keener sense of self-preservation than I do.
Yeah, always. Let me open a trap door in the floor here. But I will echo a lot of it. Like, I actually like Spike a lot in Angel Season 5. I think that they realize they have to get him to that place so he can be that fun character again. And this kind of mirror of Angel that annoys the shit out of Angel. Like, that's really smart. As an adult watching this now, like an older adult who's gone through things, like, there is a kind of sadness about this wrap up to these characters where it's like, obviously he's done these horrible things to her and is trying to make amends for them. But I do think the thing that has to happen is he has to leave, right? Like, I don't think, as much as we're barreling towards the cookie dough speech, like, I do think absenting himself from this scene is good for him and his character growth. And seeing that again now after all these years, I feel like as much as they have to make the Spuffy shippers happy, I do think it's less positive about this relationship than I thought it was. I do think it recognizes, like, there is something about each other that we respond to, but this is not the ticket.
Listen, I also need to add this. The Spuffy shippers are always the most intense and mad in Slayerfest mentions. So please remember that I am the host and I didn't say anything negative if you're going to be mad.
I think it's I actually find it's not a relationship I would include in anything I was writing, but I do think, like, the degree to which a character like this can make amends and the various metaphors it wheels onto the stage to think about it is audacious. Is it a relationship I think of as particularly healthy? Probably not. Like, I don't. I like that it goes to the place where she tries to give him the emotional payoff she thinks he needs in this moment where he's dying, And I like that he has the emotional growth to realize, no, you don't. Like, I think that is actually a more powerful line than I realized it was when I was like 17 or whatever. But
I love that as the final, like their final interaction. I think it's fucking fantastic. We cut to Anya and Andrew in the hospital, and right now I'm going to have a scene reading with Ivy Lebelle playing Anya and Neil McNeil playing Andrew.
Ooh, this one has oxygen tanks.
Well, they'd only be useful if something big was attacking, and then we could shove one down their throat and blow them up like Roy Scheider did in that shark in Jaws. What?
You are the perfect woman.
I've often thought so. Wanna rob?
Let's rob. Oh, cool. Gauze and alcohol, tape. Ooh, sutures. If we want to get stitchy with it. Oh, and there's a box of ointment here. I used one of these on a rash once.
Oh, show me.
Well, it's healed up, but it was red and crusty, and there were like these little itchy places.
No, show me the box full of ointments, you little freak, and get cotton packing for those big wounds.
This can be bad, isn't it?
Yeah.
So how come you're here? I mean, you could just go, right?
Yeah, I did that once before. Before
what?
Well, there was this other apocalypse this one time. And, well, I took off, but this time, I don't know.
Well, what's different?
Well, I guess I was kind of new to being around humans before, but now I've seen a lot more, gotten to know people, seen what they're capable of. And I guess I just realized how amazingly screwed up they all are. I mean, really, really screwed up in a monumental fashion.
Oh.
And they have no purpose that unites them. So they just drift around, blundering through life until they die, which they know is coming. Yet every single one of them is surprised when it happens to them. They're incapable of thinking about what they want beyond the moment. They kill each other, which is clearly insane. And yet here's the thing. When it's something that really matters, they fight. I mean, they're lame morons for fighting, but they do. They never quit. So I guess I'll keep fighting too.
That was kind of beautiful. You love humans.
I do not.
Yes, you do. You love them.
Stop it. I don't love them, and I'll kill you if you tell anybody.
I won't tell anybody. Won't get a chance to anyway.
I don't know. You might survive.
No, you might survive. You know how to handle a weapon, and you've been in this world for like 1,000 years. I'm not so... I don't think I'll be okay. I'm cool with it. I think I'd like to finish out as one of those lame humans trying to do what's right.
Yeah.
So, wheelchair fight?
This scene, I truly love this scene. I think we've all already said we love it. Emma Caulfield's delivery here is just... she never misses with her delivery. I'm not going to pretend like, oh, she's really good in this scene, but not in others. She's always really good. But the like both like kind of panic and kind of love in her voice. Like even, I mean, we skipped over it, but previously when Andrew is like, her and Andrew are exchanging the like alcohol and he's like, everything's terrible. And he tells her, I'm going in and you're coming with me. And she's excited, right? Like she's like smiling and happy and excited. I love this. Like, this feels like a fully formed version of Anya. And Anthony, you have said before that like Anya's story kind of could only really end with her dying, right?
Yeah, I think this speech understands that, yes. Right? Yes. That it is actually one of her best speeches, I think. Yes. She has sort of recognized the shanshu of it all, right? Like you must live until you die, right? And I like that she gets a chance to articulate it. I do think that as much as her death does feel very perfunctory, you have to flash back to this speech to make that death's meaning make its sense, right? Like there is something about the randomness and surprise of death that she articulates here that makes the brutality of it when it happens in the finale matter, right?
Yeah.
I also really like that it is just Andrew having what a gay man's response would be to meeting Anya, which is like, this is the perfect woman, right?
Right?
Like,
Yes.
Yeah. I don't think it's an accident.
It's the meme of like a woman does something totally psychotic and her gay like honestly work. Like that's Anya's whole vibe, right? Like,
that's him. Yeah. And I don't think it's an accident either that like when we were all of us pitching the episodes we wish this season did, a lot of them pivot around Andrew because he is he is a breath of fresh air in this season that is otherwise sometimes quite funereal. And Anya's story is kind of done, right? Like, unfortunately, this show can't think of anything for her to do after date Xander.
Yeah.
Right.
But she is still an amazing character, and having Andrew bounce off her is a really smart way to go. They're both kind of sociopaths too, which is fun.
Well, and I think it makes it meaningful that in Chosen, that when she does go down, she's fighting alongside Andrew when she does, because it's not with Xander. It's not really in relation to Xander in any way. It allows her independence, and also, but though calls back to this scene, like you were saying, Anthony, where all of a sudden, because Andrew's there in that moment, even though it sort of like happens, there's just chaos and nobody's really looking, but like her final stand is alongside him, and it makes you sort of mentally remember that scene more readily.
Yeah, and he is her last reader, right? Like he does, his propensity for telling stories weaves this version where she heroically saved his life when he tells it to Xander, which in fact she did not do.
Right.
But he recognizes she deserves more attention, really, that even Xander is capable of giving her, which I find really beautiful.
Yeah.
One thing I love about, I don't know, actually, strike that. What I'll say is, one thing I noticed about this speech that hit me this time hearing it is how Anya spoke about humanity and humanness as brutal, and how she kind of draws this parallel to her demon life. And it almost gives this, how do I say it? It's almost as if she's saying like, she says like, humans are mean to each other, they kill each other. And she kind of gives this view of like demons as like, we all are different, but we kind of just like get along. We kind of hate humanity, and humanity wants to kill us, but we kind of have our shit together, but we just live forever. So I actually love it because it does kind of turn this idea on its head of like, humans are civilized, demons are brutal, like this kind of like,
right. She's Thomas Hobbes. Life is nasty, brutal, and short.
Yeah. It almost turns this dynamic on its head, that she has now come to realize that like humans are the nasty, brutal people, but that there is like something that guides them that's larger, I guess, than she had realized. So I that was something that struck me about this for the first time, that like turning on its head of like, who are the humans and who are the demons.
Well, it has echoes of two things for me. One of which, fairly obviously, is her speech in The Body, when she talks about how it's stupid and it's mortal and it makes no sense. And, I can't understand why. And this feels like it's bringing it. Now she does understand why. She understands more than she did 2 years ago. And I think The Body is a more impactful speech. I don't know. You can only go so far with me, where it's just like humans, they keep on trucking along and they'll keep on fighting. And it's just like, the show, whatever, there's a little bit, it's a little maybe more literal than I want it to be, about like, the good thing about humans is punch, punch, kick, kick, like that kind of a thing. Yeah. But which is not really taking too much away from it. But the other thing that it reminds me of is Age of Ultron, actually. The end of Age of Ultron, when Vision talks about how, Ultron says, they're doomed to fail. And he says, yes, but I can't remember the specific line, but it's just like, something about just like watching them try. There's no ability.
Something isn't beautiful because it lasts, is the line.
Right. And essentially the sentiment is just like, there is value in watching them strive and fail a little bit.
Right.
And that reminded me a lot of this. And I am one of the foremost Age of Ultron apologists. I really love that movie.
It too, actually.
And so, yeah, I like the note that movie ends on at that moment too. So it did remind me of that quite a bit.
And I even like Andrew's beat of like, because this season we've like been wavering with like, he's trying, but he's not doing a good job, but he is trying. And he's still like, fucking murdered someone and was like, in cohorts with this like murderer and rapist. But like the beat of like him kind of finishing on, I think I'd like to finish out as one of those lame humans trying to do what's right, is I think a very nice, like, we don't, we're going into the finale. No one's getting character beats but Buffy. And it's nice for this side character to get that beat of like, that's like him this season, right? Like that's what he wants to be doing. And I think that is nice too, to get our like anxious gay, as Anthony said, semi-sociopathic gay character, like actually saying out loud, I do want to do something good.
The other
and they
thing
are the
is,
two characters to have that conversation, right? Like they are in a weird way in parallel. They're both the bad guys who have reformed him in a more comic tone, but still,
And I love that. Then right after that, he's like, wheelchair fight, and then they just like are like being silly together. Like it's nice to give those characters. They have this like heavy discussion about humanity, and then like, because they are comic relief too, that it's just like, okay, cool. And we had this like serious conversation. Now we're going to end on like a very cute, silly beat. And it's, I don't know, it's nice.
The other thing is, at the time when this was airing for the first time and being in Buffy fandom at the time, you almost can't imagine the fever pitch of speculation during this last run of episodes for who was going to die and who was going to live by the end of the show. Because and that scene, I remember especially, was like picked apart like the Zapruder tape, where it's just like, what does it mean? Because a lot of the speculation fell upon both Andrew and Anya. Is one of them going to die? Both of them sort of felt sort of thematically appropriate. Everybody, there was speculation about everybody. Willow and Xander and Buffy
I remember
herself.
Xander a lot.
And everybody was suspected and who's going to die. But that scene especially, I remember being like, what does it all mean? Does it mean that Andrew's going to die? Does it mean that Anya's going to die? And people were like very certain on both sides of the aisle that just like, R.I.P. Andrew, like that's the end. He's made his final speech or whatever. And then people thought the same thing about Anya. And it did bring that back too. This sort of like endless sense of what was happening in these episodes was one thing, and then everything happening in fandom, because that was also, Anthony, you brought up the balancing of the tables between Angel and Spike by the end there, where it's just like, we got to make sure that we don't tip it too much, or else everybody will get mad. And it was so much else was happening beyond just what was happening on screen.
But I mean, to be fair though, I always think, Mathew, you and Kirsten White always have said this on this podcast, that like, you both like don't like, the ship is so besides the point of the show, like the shipping arguments and like whatever, that like I'm glad they didn't land one way or the other, because I do think it's important that like to be like, that's really not the biggest important part of the show. And I don't understand why so many fans, get so intense about Spike versus Angel. And it's like, but that's, okay, that's a cute, like, I could be like, oh, I like Spike better, I like Angel better. Okay, but that's not something I get intense about with the show, because I don't care as much about that. Like, and I don't understand someone who watches a show and that's all they care about, right? Like, that feels very like, why do you care about that so much?
Well, I think that, and I mean, this is the show that taught me this, right? Is that like the audience wants something and the audience needs something, and they are often at odds. And I think that like the audience wants these characters to have happy endings, but the audience needs these characters to have fulfilled their stories, right? And I think that can be something that's hard. Like, I think it is important to think about the way shipping shapes these narratives in the same way it matters to think about like the Iraq War, or the other thing we haven't talked about, which is like the Two Towers, right? Like, this season smells of a lot of Lord of the Rings movies, right? Like the Uruk-hai, what do they call them in this? The Turok-Han.
The Turok-Han,
like, there is a way culture shapes these texts, and like a lot of this season is incomprehensible unless you know how crazy people were going about how Giles hasn't touched something for 8 episodes, right? Like,
oh my God.
And that's invisible in the text, right?
Yeah. I can't tell you how insane that was at the time, where people, again, were just pausing their way through things, just like, did he brush up against that? Did that coat move when he walked past it? Like, it was crazy. It was amazing.
So, pop quiz. Anthony, why the hell, how does Buffy know where to go to find the Guardian?
I could not tell you. She must have walked past that thing every day, right? Like, I don't know.
When will my Slayer return from war?
Because I was like, I've been doing that a lot in these last episodes where I just like, I'm like watching it and I'm like, well, I don't know why this is happening. And then I asked one of the guests because I'm like, does someone else know? And no one ever knows. There's a lot of that.
There's a lot of, is it I think it's the hieroglyphs, right? Because Willow's and Giles' scene ends with them being like a thing that might have hieroglyphs on it. And then Buffy suddenly goes to the most hieroglyphy tomb I guess. Like, who did they think? I guess, you know what it looks like? It looks like Nick Cage's mausoleum. Have you seen that?
No.
Nick Cage plans to be buried in a huge pyramid in New Orleans.
Oh my God.
In one of those above ground cemeteries. And it looks exactly like where the Guardian seems to be, her like 1-bedroom apartment in the cemetery.
Now I know what I'm Googling after this.
Yeah.
But okay, so she goes down. I think Buffy looks great in this scene. She goes down, she meets the Guardian. I mean, we talked about this already. We don't need to sit on it, but like, Jesus Christ, like
this is just awful,
right?
I mean, as I have said, if Caleb didn't do it, I would have snapped him off.
Mathew,
it's fucking awful. Like, I'm sorry, no.
And like, I can see what they were trying to do,
which is Galadriel from Lord of the Rings.
I was thinking, like, I understand the impulse to take your stylistic cues from Christina Pickles in the Masters of the Universe movie.
Great ref, yes.
But other than that, I was also kind of baffled that of all the like actors that have been in Joss productions in the past, like I was kind of baffled that this wasn't a cameo of some sort.
It could have been Christy Swanson if she wasn't like a right-wing maniac, right? Like that would have been fun, actually.
Sure.
Although the politic, like, let us not note that, like, so it turns out the source of the Slayer's power is a white lady, right? Like there is something a little weird about that, right? Like we did this halfway around the world, and it's like, but you're white.
I also say that, like, if I were Buffy and she stepped out behind that thing, and she was like, we've been watching the Watchers, I would be like, well, where the fuck were you?
Yeah.
That line of like, we are the final surprise. Just like, you can't just like spell it out. Just like, we are the third act twist, right?
Right. Well, how about when the Watchers tried to kill me with a vampire and like took my mom? What about when the Watchers turned their back on me? What about when they came here and put me through a test? Like
the Scythe wasn't there. Like, why? Like, there's a version where that's the lady who's guarding the Scythe, right?
Yeah.
Like,
right.
Whereas she's like adjacent to it. Like, does she look out the window at it? Like, also, I don't.
If you're guarding the Scythe, why did you let them excavate it from Africa and bring it to Sunnydale? Like,
that's like there's a lot of things like when she says we are the ones that and it's like, well, you didn't do shit for 7 seasons, so like, what do you mean you've been watching? Like,
what, you've been watching Lifetime? Like,
and like, I get what they're trying to do. Like look, it wasn't men. They're trying to like very much like force feed you that shit to be like, look, it really wasn't men behind this, but like it still was, because whoever these Guardian women were didn't do a single thing.
It's the Simpsons episode. It's the monorail episode with Leonard Nimoy when he's just like, my work here is done. You didn't do anything, didn't I? And like,
I just like, if she's mystical, didn't she know that her neck was going to get snapped?
Right.
Shouldn't she have not stood behind an open doorway?
Like, and I will say some of this is performance, right? Like this actress really does not nail any of this speech. Like there's a version, like Cate Blanchett could give you this speech, but Cate Blanchett, she ain't, right?
So Caleb comes in and snaps her neck because sure, fine, whatever.
Right.
It would have even been nicer if that woman hadn't died. Like, I don't know. It doesn't matter. But I will say, so we're gonna get into this because we gotta keep moving. I do love this fight. I think this is like a very good Buffy fight. And it feels like a little bit more brutal with like the punches and the kicks and like, you know, he's punching through the columns and like knocking it over. I do really like the choreography here. I don't know how you boys feel.
I've never noticed choreography in my life. Good for you. Like, I do struggle with the set more than anything. For me, is like I wish this was a bit grander. Like, there's that underground space that Darla confronts Angel in one of the early seasons of Angel, like the reservoir space. I kind of wish we were somewhere like that. Whereas the ceilings are like 8 feet high here. There seems to be it's like, I mean, the show has no budget. Like, I can't be mad at them about it, but.
Again, though, it does feel like I'm struggling to tell whether this is budget stuff at the time or whether this is the digital transfer of this that is sort of showing things in a harsher light than earlier stuff. I don't know. I would have to go back into everything and look. But I thought that too at the beginning when the potentials are all fighting the Urukai, as you mentioned.
Right.
That was just like distinct from the Urukai. This looks chintzy. Yeah.
I want to do this. I want to do this purely for Joe. This is a gift I want to give Joe.
Yes.
The woman who plays the Guardian, these are her 4 known fours.
Oh, gimme.
On IMDb.
Wow.
Gimme.
Murder by Numbers, where she plays Justin's mother.
Good movie.
Dr. Quinn, Medicine Woman, where she plays Dr. Miriam Tilson.
Fantastic.
ER, where she plays Hospital Administrator.
She's been there all along, waiting behind the doctors.
She gives the same speech in all 4 shows.
And finally, Martin, where she plays Sister Mary Tyler.
Oh, so she plays like spooky ladies. That's her deal.
Yeah.
She like plays nuns.
Those are her 4 known fours.
Wow. So Buffy doesn't even crack her known for.
What's funny is on the same year that she was on Buffy, she also had a 1-episode stint on Charmed as Grandma Calloway.
This is a very Charmed character, right?
Yes.
Like,
yes.
This is the thing that I always swore up and down Buffy was not whenever I explained it to somebody. And
listen,
like, well,
Finola Hughes takes exception to your shade there, but yes, otherwise, yes.
But like, there's even a weird moment in the choreography of this fight where like he punches her, she goes against a column and then falls backwards. It's very weird. I just like, it feels like it's different than a Buffy fight.
But the next episode opens with this fight again, right? Like,
I know. But so then I do love hands up. He's like got her down and then we hear the like, hey, and then Angel punches him and the way the music that swells and
the
like
hero cue. Oh my gosh. The hero cue.
It works on me. It works on me 100%. And I'm like, oh, he's here. It's very nice to see, even though I'm not that big either way shipping. I'm problematic and probably lean more towards Spike, but their dynamic here, you can't pretend it's not good, right? I do think it's like, I missed seeing them together. All right, Anthony, tell me why I'm wrong.
I feel like it's David Boreanaz playing David Boreanaz. I don't feel like this is actually paying off a beat we needed to pay off. It is just like, we're wrapping up the show, everybody come in for a curtain call, but it emotionally doesn't. I don't know if we needed this. I don't know if he's giving me Angel. I don't know. Am I alone? Maybe I am, but
no, there was something definitely off about this, I thought too. And again, to me, it just felt very perfunctory and just been very, again, sort of like balancing those scales. And I also didn't remember him showing up before Chosen. I thought for whatever reason, my brain wrote it that he just sort of shows up in Chosen. And I think I was sort of writing in the part where he shows up after Joyce dies and he's sort of like in the cemetery there.
Yeah. That's I love that beat a lot.
I also feel like if this whole end game has been about the misogynist priest and, the women who sort of rise up and fight him, it's kind of a little weird that her ex-boyfriend comes in and is making the save.
Yeah.
What if the actress who played the last Guardian was Joyce, and you find out the whole time Joyce was
honestly,
that is awful, but why not? Let's see.
She's like, I did not have brain cancer, I just had to leave you.
Or it's Jenny Calendar again.
Oh my God. Yes.
So then we end on the stupid beat of, I don't love I think it should have just been they kiss, because I think it's very nice. I liked the idea. I feel like for me, I'm like, straight people do this too, but like the idea of like these exes that have love for each other, but aren't like that is literally just like the next episode Spike says, is that just how people say hello? And like that was kind of just a hello for them. I don't think we needed Spike to be there. It does make sense that he would follow her to make sure she's okay. I did not need the first being like that bitch, because it doesn't matter. We could have just had the reveal of she comes home with the medallion and Spike's like, I can smell him on you. I know you're making out with Angel. And it would have the same impact because it doesn't matter.
It's an odd beat. Like,
yeah, right?
In that it does not pay off. Like, there's a version, like, they would never let it happen because see above Reese Buffy shippers, but like,
right.
If Spike had turned into the twist, like, big bad, he's like, misogyny relapses here, that would have been a reason to have that twist. I don't know if it would have been a good one, but like, this literally goes nowhere, right?
Well,
like, and that bitch is the extent of it.
There was, when we were talking in the Xander Dawn scene, there was more reason to think that the show would have turned Xander unexpectedly evil than there would have been to ever believe that they would have allowed Spike to be bad by the end of the show. If you were at all
especially at this point,
it's insane to like try and fake out the audience like that. I felt insulted. I was just like, absolutely not.
It should have just been Buffy. The last episode is Buffy kills every male character on the show.
Right. Chasing down Clem as he's running down. Just like,
rampage. He kills every single male character on the show. Except Andrew, who's allowed to live.
And now, with a fashion roundup for End of Days, we have season 7 costume designer Matt Van Dyne. Hello, Matt.
Hi, everyone.
We're here where it's the second to last episode.
It's almost the end of days, right? It is the end of days, but not quite.
Yeah.
Almost the end of days.
Can you believe right now we have done 20 episode recordings together? That's a lot.
Have we really done that many? Oh my goodness.
You've been so patient with me, Matt.
Oh, no. You've been patient with me, but I'm thrilled that I can disclose as much as I have been able to, to just give you a little more insight into what my department did for this season, for the show, though. Yeah. So I'm amazed I have as much information as I do in my record.
Matt, I am too. I remember when we started, you were like, oh, I don't know that I'll have that much. And then you're like, I got the script, I got the sheets.
Yeah, well, like I said, I put it away in the garage for about 18 years.
Yeah.
And I guess, I never really revisited it.
Yeah.
And then when you approached me about this, I thought, well, I don't know what I have. But then, as it turns out, I had a lot more than I thought. And being able to watch the episodes, of course, helps, because that stirs my memory a little bit, about what.
There have been a couple episodes where you're like, oh, I don't remember that one. But then you've watched it and been like, oh, yep, now I remember.
And then I'll go, I remember that. And then, but, like watching this episode, when I saw Emma, in her little black floral, sweater.
I love that sweater.
I do too. I do too. And I was like thrilled that I found that it was I was thrilled too in the episode that they photographed it from behind, because that's where it showed so beautifully with, I think she's with Tom.
Yeah.
In that scene, she's on the left, he's on the right, as I recall. But yeah, the back of that sweater is so beautiful, and that came from Neiman Marcus, and that was like $300. I have about $350 for that. Yeah. So we spent a lot of money on that. I spent a lot of money on Emma overall. I really did.
Well, you really liked dressing her, right?
I did. She was like my little fashion thing that could just be anything. And that's what I loved about her character, and also Emma was so beautiful, and is so beautiful, that I could just put her in just about anything.
Yeah.
And there weren't really any limits to how I could dress her. It was like I could do fashion forward, funky, just anything. And that was what was fun. So that was a great character to play with, and she was a great person to work with. So that always helped too. And
that you put her in a lot of good outfits this season. I will say I like a lot of them, but weirdly, this even though she only wears this briefly, that stands out to me. Like, I think of that.
Yeah, it does. I love that one, and I love that little pearl embossed short sleeve pale blue sweater she wore. I love that too. on her. I thought she looked so cute. I think that was a couple episodes ago. But
yeah, I remember you talking about that.
Yeah, did we talk?
Yeah,
but I love that on her. I thought but yeah, no, she was just a joy, just a total joy to dress and to do all kinds of things with, And I think I looked at the, believe it or not, on my DVD collection, I had never looked at the, as it outtakes, I guess is what they call it, and. But I saw Emma, in so many different outfits, and one of them was going back to the earlier in the season when she wore that custom made dress. The
one you didn't like?
Well, I liked it, but I just thought it had an issue. That that there was an issue with something on it that I don't think I ever disclosed what I thought it was. But
I was waiting for you to say in case you were going.
I'm not going to say it. I'm not going to say it just yet. But maybe I could for this since we're at the end. I just thought the collar could have been made better on it.
That was what bothered you?
Yes, it was the collar, not the COLOR. Beautiful print, but the COLLAR. I'm a stickler for certain details, and in real life, I can make people crazy. With that sometimes. I try not to, but as I tell them, it's not fun being this way. It's not. It's not like, oh boy, I'm gonna, notice. Right. But it's just something about when I encounter something I design or do like that, that, and if it's off, that will bother me. Till
like forever,
till the end of days.
Yeah,
till the end of days, it will bother me. But in this episode too, speaking of spending a lot of money, for Giles, his navy cardigan was a Ralph Lauren cardigan, which photographs beautifully. Which now maybe to the average viewer, it just looks navy blue, but I see the weave and the detail of that cardigan when we do close-ups on the Anthony. Okay. And I just love how that looked, the cross weave on that cardigan. And it was $900 from Saks Fifth Avenue. A lot of his clothes, most of his clothes either came from Saks or Neiman's. Everything, pretty much, even his T-shirts were Armani usually, or there was just something about him that required that. And being the authoritarian figure that he was, right. in the character, and the way, and he wore clothes so well, so beautifully. It was a joy to dress him. And I noticed his tan suede coat, and that was. Or was a coat or like a jacket kind of thing. And it was from Saks, and that was $500. And that was an Andrew Mark, which Andrew Mark is still around, thank goodness. At least last I checked, it was. But then I noticed it, for his T-shirts, and I think there were some stunts maybe involved in this episode for him, because I think I had some notes for stunt doubles for him. And there was a lot of multiples for Armani T-shirts, which were $125 a piece, which at that time, and still to me, is a lot to pay. Still to me is a lot to pay for a T-shirt.
Yeah,
But the way things drape on the fabric of a $125 T-shirt, you get the bang for the buck on screen because it looks so nice. It drapes so well. And I noticed I had a note for when Sarah finally changes clothes.
Yeah. As I say, this episode she wears a new outfit. Yes.
Yes, she finally changes clothes. A denim jacket, which we've talked about before.
I love the denim jackets, Matt.
Well, that's good because but she does look so good on them. She really does. And they do work for what's going on in the story and what's in the scene. But I had a note on her olive green pants. And first, when I saw that in my records, I thought, well, where is she wearing an olive green pants? So I went back and I watched this episode repeatedly in slow motion and then and then, okay, there it is. I see.
At the end, I see. You can always text me and ask me that, because I would be like, oh, very end.
Oh, you're so good. I know. I can ask you questions. What happens in this episode? I want to make sure I get it right. And then I also had a note for Sarah. I think it's what she's wearing underneath her jacket. Okay. I have, now I did spend quite a bit on those. And that was a favorite designer of Sarah's, and one of mine was Stella McCartney. Okay. And Stella McCartney does beautiful clothing. And there were 2 blouses, and they were $530 a piece. So somehow we got by, probably with the stunt, maybe for less, So okay. I probably, fudged that a little bit. And
that's easier when she's wearing a jacket, right? Like
exactly. Yeah, exactly. And there is amazing stunt work in this episode. Yeah. I mean, I was watching, these fights, it's incredible. And there's so many stunts. And of course, in purchasing for all of the people, involved in these shows, a lot of the money goes to multiples for all of the stunts. So, and I wanted to mention that Sarah's blouses came from a store. It was a boutique here in LA called Maxfield. That's where it came from. Okay. And but yeah, the stunt work. But like I said, for the stunt, if we're going to rip a jacket up the back or whatever, right, we're not going to rip a $530 Stella McCartney blouse apart. So I'm sure we came up with something else. And there was something I noticed in this episode, and I don't know where I bought it, but I have a hunch. It was Iari's Kennedy. Mm-hmm. It was her little soldier. I don't know if you can tell that that's what it is. It's a little tank top that she wears under her jacket. Okay. It's like a blue, and and the figure on it it's like a soldier holding a gun. Oh. And it I don't know if. Well, maybe there's some fans out there that picked that up, but I have a feeling that might have come from Urban Outfitters. I'm thinking, but I'm not sure. But I always like that. I remember I thought, oh, that's so clever, on her on screen. And then I found a note where DB Woodside, I bought his silver hoop earrings at Nordstrom, and I was surprised that I came across that. That kind of surprised me.
Yeah.
And then for Xander, I have a brown suede jacket. I think he puts that on over maybe a denim shirt or something, I believe.
I think so, yeah.
And that denim shirt, and I don't know where that came from, but I like that shirt. I didn't love, I'll just be honest with the fans, I didn't love that it appeared in the scene opposite Sarah when she's wearing the Buffy jacket or the denim jacket.
Yeah.
I didn't love that because I don't like doing that usually on camera, putting them in something similar.
Yeah.
They were different, but they were, for me, a little too similar, but maybe not for everybody else. And probably what happened is that sometimes things change in the middle of shooting.
Yeah.
And, you just kind of have to go with it because in continuity, that's what he would be wearing. So,
right. Yeah. Yeah.
So there was probably a change because usually I was pretty good about not putting, I would set up a rack basically. And this is something I guess I never discussed. This is kind of interesting, maybe for everyone, but I would set up the rack and I would set the scenes and the characters. And then I would put the clothing all together on the rack for the scene to make sure that things would not overlap or double or,
That is interesting, Matt.
And then I would sometimes have to move that outfit down the rack because it would appear in other scenes and go, okay, because you can imagine this is kind of like doing a Rubik's Cube, basically.
But with giant racks and clothing.
Yeah, and you're, well, does it work here? Oh, yeah, it works here. Oh, but wait, it won't work down here because they're wearing that, So, so it really is like a massive puzzle to put together. And I would do that for every episode. I learned that many years before about setting up scenes and making sure that we didn't, double
Well, yeah, Buffy wasn't your first rodeo.
No, it wasn't. No, but as I've said before, I've sure been privileged to dress so many wonderful actors and wonderful people. I mean, just my experience with everyone, I would say 99.9% of the time has just been terrific.
Yeah. That's nice.
Of course, there are a few glitches here and there along the way, but usually, to be honest, I don't know if I said this before, but well, I had this reputation that they would ask for me to come in if there was a difficult actress, and I don't know why that was. I don't know if it's a personality thing, but for me, I wasn't. I didn't run into much difficulty with most people because. I don't know if my personality just, blended with theirs or whatever, but also, I would listen to them and listen. That was, so important. Of course, I knew going in that they must have had an issue, or else they wouldn't have called me, to come, so, but I didn't find anybody really that extremely difficult, just listen to them and try to work with them and try to make them understand and know and feel secure that I always had their best interest in mind, which I did. I never sabotaged anyone. Because why would you do that? You're only sabotaging the product, the work, and then ultimately I would sabotage myself. That would be ridiculous. I would never do such a thing. And then, of course, one of the biggest things in this episode to me was the character the she, they called her. But in the original script, that's when Buffy encounters her and she tells Buffy who she is, in this cave or whatever. And I remember this so vividly doing that part of the episode.
Okay. Was
that in the original script, it says that she is like a Miss Havisham character from is that Great Expectations, I believe.
Oh, really?
Yeah, from Dickens.
Yeah,
and she's dusty, all in white, and to blend in with the backgrounds. Well, somewhere along the way that changed, of course. Now the production designer, must have, or they came up maybe after the fact. I don't have that note, but. Somehow I knew because I have in my notes in the script to do earth tones. I think we must have discussed this at the production meeting and changed our minds about it all. And to do earth tones and I knew that the scenic design was going to be kind of like that, but I wasn't exactly sure. I wasn't definite about what colors he would use, but I knew they would be earth tones. So when I went to design, I remember I came directly from the production meeting back to my desk in my office, and I sat down. I had a sheet of paper. I still have the original sheet of paper and the design, and I had a pencil. I didn't have all my color markers or whatever to color it, but I just designed from my mind what I thought that character would be. I didn't have any references or anything like that. And I just did a simple sketch, and well, not so simple, I guess, basically, but I knew that I wanted it to look, kind of timeless in a way.
Yeah.
And have
honestly, I can see the Miss Havisham influence there still.
Now you can, yes, but not in white. I didn't get the white reference in the script. But yeah. And so I remember in making it, I just told Shirley, who was my seamstress, she took all the fabric. We went shopping for fabric immediately. And I think we went to F&S Fabrics on the west side. And I might have also stopped at the other fabric store on the way home on Beverly, and gave her all the stuff. And I said, rip it here, do this to it, shred it here. And she brought it back to me, and we fit the actress in it almost immediately. And I remember, going to the set, and I had not seen the set yet, the cave.
Oh, like where she was going to be.
Yes. And I walked in and I went, oh my God, it was like meant to be. It was just like everything melded. And I was, it was a beautiful set, the beautiful colors, the set design. And I loved how the shimmery fabric photographed for her. It was like this tattered looking moire kind of taffeta sheath that we put under these things that I had gathered on her shoulders, and I had medallions on each side, and it just came together so beautifully. And I was just always so happy with that character and the way it turned out. And unfortunately, she didn't last very long.
Yeah.
So she bit the dust pretty fast. And then the other memory I have in this episode is the arrival of Angel.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll save that for later, but most of it. But I have a specific memory of, I had not met him before. Now, I had worked at Paramount Studios right next to the soundstage where they were shooting Angel. But I was working on a show called That's Life at the time, with Debbie Mazar and a lot of different, Ellen Burstyn was in that show. Mm-hmm. A lot of, but we were, separate from Angel. So I never met David before. And I have a vivid memory of walking in to my office. And before you go into my office, you entered we had a general area. And there were two chairs. I can remember this so well, with a little table between them. Two chairs sitting off to the right side as I walked in, and David was sitting there. And I thought, oh, that's David, and then we began to discuss, what, he would wear for, the upcoming, episode. So, but I have a definite memory of that, of End of Days. But those are, pretty much my memories for this episode.
Cool.
And it's sad to say there's only one more to go.
Only one left.
Only one to go.
Well, thank you, Matt, so much.
Thank you.
And I'll see you next time.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye. All right. Favorite outfit, Joe?
I love Buffy in a denim jacket moment, but I do want to commemorate this run of Faith's lowlights in this return to the show era. I feel like I guess they communicate a softer Faith or something, a reformed Faith manifests
itself bright under that
in,
darkness.
Yes, exactly.
Anthony, favorite outfit?
Love a priest in black jeans. You knew I was going to say it. Especially if he's got goop coming out of his face.
I didn't, but I should have. You're right. I should have. Matthew?
I know you asked for a short answer, but I'm the former co-host and I'll give whatever answer I want, which is, so I just feel like in season 7, there aren't that many outfits that stand out to me. Honestly.
See, my favorite outfit is, I love Buffy in her denim jacket. I just love a denim jacket. I think Buffy looks fantastic for that final scene. But I do want to say close second is, I do think Anya looks really cute in that,
her hair looks good in this episode too. Her hair went on a rough journey in season 7, but it ended up in a pretty nice place.
Yeah. Favorite scene, Anthony?
I guess it's the hospital scene. I guess that's the beat that feels most emotionally honest to me and has the most juice in it. And both characters have something to say. I like that scene.
Joe?
Agreed. It's the hospital scene. Yeah.
Matthew?
Hospital, yeah.
Same for me. I do say a close second is I like Buffy and Faith scene, but the Anya and Andrew scene is the best. What grade do we give the episode, Matthew?
Two out of 5 snapped necks.
Joe?
I mean, Anya and Andrew do raise the grade a little bit. Also, by the way, I said lowlights when I meant highlights. Don't at me. Anyway, Anya and Andrew raised the grade a little bit, but I can't. I'm going to give it a generous C+.
Oh, all right. Anthony, what's your F grade that you give it?
No, I feel bad because as I said, I don't know why I feel like I have to belabor this, but I love this show. I just feel like season 7, I honestly struggle to understand what it is actually saying. Like at a textual basis, I feel like an idiot every time I watch it. Like, I guess I'm supposed to learn that war is hard, but people make the calls they have to make and kids die. And it's like, I guess,
yeah.
At an emotional level, I guess I'm at a C+ Joe with Joe on this one.
Okay.
Anthony, I think the lesson of season 7 can be summed up by saying, war, what is it good for? Absolutely nothing. Say it again, y'all.
That reference only makes me think of, and I feel like Joe's the only one that will care about this. I've been watching a lot of Seinfeld lately when Elaine.
Yep.
That's all that makes me think of is when
the
Elaine is
title of War and Peace. Yeah.
When she tells Yuri Kistikov and he like freaks out. But okay, so I give this episode an A only because I think of all my grading the way Anthony thinks of it. Wait, I think of it the way Anthony thinks of grading, where it's you think like, does it achieve what it's trying to do? And it's not a favorite episode, but I think this and Touched achieve what it's been trying to do for a lot of the season, where it didn't achieve it, where it's like we're getting emotional beats, and that's all it's trying to do is move the emotional beats around so we get them leading into the finale.
But did we like? She stun guns Xander, and we're like, that's, I don't know. I don't want to undermine your grading methodology is your own.
I don't want to undermine, but I'm going to undermine. But yeah, no. So for me, that's the only reason I would give it an A. I was thinking like B plus A. You all almost convinced me to go down to a C, and then I was like, no, I'm going to stick to my grading. But no, that's the only reason why, because I think it moves for me. Like we get the Spike and Buffy beats, we get the Buffy Angel beat, we get the Buffy Faith beat, we get the Anya Andrew beat, and for me, those achieve what they're trying to do. The plot stuff is still messy, and I don't know what it's even achieving, if it achieves anything. But yeah, no, I think the emotional beats are there, and for me, that's like the important stuff. All right, well, thank you, boys, for joining me. It was so great having all three of you back for this chaotic recording. If you like Slayerfest 98, you can find us at SlayerFestX98 on all social media platforms. You can find the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and other places you get your podcasts. And if you want to support us, you can support us on Patreon, where you get access to all our bonus episodes. We are starting Harley Quinn Season 2 next month. We're going through What If as well. And if you want to follow me, I am at Ian Carlos. Anthony, where can everyone find you?
I am at Mia Koopa, bad Latin Super Mario joke, on Twitter and, I don't know, Instagram. AnthonyOliveira.com. And I'm on Patreon doing the Devil's Party podcast as well.
And Joe, where can everyone find you?
At Joe Reid. Reid is REID on Twitter, and that'll send you to all the places you need to go to.
And Mathew, where can everyone find you?
In their dreams.
Ow!
Oh, no, that was supposed to be good dreams, but
not Frank Kruger.
At Mathew Rodriguez, Mathew with 1 T, Rodriguez with a G and a Z on Twitter.
All right, cool, and we will see you next time. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.